So how many people were at the PDC 2 years ago? Okay, and of those people, how many of you saw the talk that I gave 2 years ago? Okay, all right, so let me apologize to you in advance because I am fundamentally a lazy person and I have used much of the same talk, but there's a point, in fact, to my laziness today. Last time, I came to talk to you about how to make some of the difficult trade-offs in making software that has a really positive emotional relationship with your users. And it was all kind of a lot of talk. So this past year, I spent with this great team that I'm on making software that embodied those principles. So today, there will be some repeat as to the kind of principles that you should employ, but hopefully some new content as well that talks about, hey, here's specific examples of us going and doing it. And so we're not just talking, hopefully, but actually doing. And who here, I assume everybody was in the keynote? Is everyone in the keynote? So you guys already got a preview of what we're working on. That was the Max software. And in fact, that's the thing we've been working on. So, you know, and I said this last time, and I still feel it bears repeating, that it may be strange to have someone from Microsoft tell you how to make software that creates a positive emotional experience or that's easy to use. Because normally this is kind of what you expect. Or maybe something like this. This is, in fact, the wallpaper we use in our conference rooms in Redmond. I always wonder about this picture. There's the guy pointing at some important part of the diagram, and then the guy sitting is ignoring him, and he's got an enormous notebook. What could be so important as to require such an enormous notebook? I don't know. So, as we mentioned a little bit in the keynote, and I'll give you a little more background on that, about 8-9 months ago, Jim Allchin came to me and said, hey, Hillel, I have a job for you. And I was like, I already have a job. He's like, well, I have a new job for you. I was like, great. I'm so excited. And he said, are you familiar with the term canary in a coal mine? And I said, I think, but maybe you better explain it to me again. And he said, well, the miners, you know, they'd have the canary in there to make sure there was enough oxygen and, you know, make sure they could breathe and stuff. Like, you know, because they're down in a mine, gases and all sorts of crazy stuff going on. And, you know, as long as the canary was singing, then they were okay. I was like, well, what happened if there wasn't enough oxygen to the canary? He was like, well, the canary dies. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, you're the canary. He said, the platform, WinFX, that's the mine, and our developers, all of you guys, you're the miners. So essentially, it was our job to go scope it out for you and see if this was a breathable environment for you. We call that basically dog food at Microsoft, and maybe you guys do too, but that's the notion of eating your own dog food to taste what it really tastes like, which really, again, we come up with a lot of appetizing images. So that's basically what this team was about, this effort called Max. So hopefully, now today, I want to set your expectations. Today is not, I'm not going to go through the APIs of the platform. I'm not going to go through the different, I'm not going to do any code demos, et cetera. And so you got plenty of that in the keynote, and you'll get tons of that the rest of the week in just about almost every session that we have here. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about more what we like to call, and this is a technical term, foofy stuff. Kind of the softer side of software, as it were. And so if that is torturous to you, I will not be insulted if you take off right now. When we decided to go, and we will, by the way, have a session on Thursday at 1 o'clock where many of the developers and architects on our team will get up and actually show you the code a lot of the code that we wrote and show you how we actually built it and exactly what APIs we used. And that's Thursday at 1. So if that's really the interesting thing to you, I encourage you to go to that. So when we looked at the platform, we looked at two main components of WinFX. We looked at Avalon and we looked at Indigo. And we said, and again, I said this in the keynote, but we really said, what is the best scenario we can come up with that's going to make it so that we can really show off, not just show off what the platform is capable of, but actually use it, right? If we're going to create an app that doesn't leverage those aspects, then we're not going to really be good canaries, as it were. And so we came up with this notion of making an application that let you share photos over the internet, do cool views on them, and share them peer-to-peer over the internet. Which, frankly, on the one hand, you might say, wow, there's a lot of things that do that. On the other hand, we didn't think there was anything that did it quite the way we were going to plan on doing it and quite the way that would show off the value of the platform. And also, we thought it was a really interesting user experience challenge because, frankly, dealing with large files, arranging them in ways that are attractive and useful and usable without a whole bunch of expertise, and then sharing those across the internet through firewalls and NATs and all the other crazy stuff, that's actually a really hard thing for a user to do. And so what better way to show off the principles of how we think you need to build great user experience than this example. And when I think of software, and I want to be clear about this, I think that this is true for software aimed at users in the home, typically we call them consumers, and users in the work environment, in the enterprise. Like, I think they're the same people. I'm going to guess that just about all of you have jobs. And I'm also going to guess that just about all of you have homes. And I'm going to go out on a further limb and guess that you probably have computers in both places. I know it's not true for everybody, but for a lot of people it is true. And you're the same person in both places. And I don't think that the keys to making a great user experience, whether you're doing something at work and being productive in your job or doing something in your personal life, I don't think they're really very different. And I think there's these sort of two high-level ingredients, and this may seem kind of funny, but I do think that there's sex and value that you have to put into each piece of software. Now, it's been pointed out to me that I'm probably the only person at the PDC to use the word sex in my slides. And it's also been pointed out to me that Value Village, no disrespect to that lovely chain of discount hardware stores, maybe not the best representation of value, but I could not come up with a picture that represented it abstractly, so we're going to go with this. What I mean by this is, I think it's kind of like a relationship. There is an initial physical attraction, but there has to be something that keeps you there for the next several decades. And you can't have a piece of software that's really a positive emotional user experience without both, in my opinion. I think you have to have that initial, ooh, I want that. And you also have to have that, oh, I gotta keep this thing because it does something I can't live without. And that is a very powerful combination for any piece of software. Again, whether your customer is using a line of business app you wrote, or whether you're using a piece of consumer software you wrote, or whatever it happens to be. Frankly, I think, other than perhaps the command line, although even IT pros administering servers on the command line, I think you can inject aspects of this, give them lots of power and value. All right, so when it comes to exposing all that power in the software, it's great that you want to do it, but frankly, you can run into serious problems. When we go to our customers and we say, hey, we have this piece of software, they love it, they use it, they've installed it on thousands of desktops, and they have V6. And we say, hey, what would you like in V7? And we show them dozens of features that we want to add, that we've listened to their feedback, and we say, hey, I think you're going to want this. And they go, yep, love it, maybe not that, but in general, we get them pretty excited. And then just as we're leaving the meeting, they go, oh yeah, one more thing. Do not cost me any retraining for our users. That's really expensive for us, and so they have to understand how to use this thing intuitively. It really has to resemble the last version very closely. And we go, okay, no problem. And so then we show up with version 7. This is months later, hopefully not too many years later. And we walk in and we say, all right, here it is. And they say, yeah, what's different about this? Why would I buy it? And this is a problem. Right? You have all this power you want to expose. You go from version to version. Users need to not be retrained or not be totally thrown for a loop, and then they can't find all the new functionality. In fact, it's what they talked about in the Office demo in the keynote, where they said, hey, 9 out of 10 of the top most requested features in Office are already in Office. People can't even find this stuff. And this is one of the challenges that we face all the time. The answer typically has been in the past, well, if they can't find it, put it on a toolbar. More toolbar buttons must mean good. And then there is this very uncomfortable topic of measuring people's emotional reaction to your software. I believe that there's a spectrum of how people think about this stuff. There's people here who really could not care what their car looks like, could not care what color it is, do not care whether it's new, old, whatever, it gets them from point A to point B, they're happy. And there's people who really care a lot about that stuff. And there's a lot of people who are somewhere in the middle. And there is no doubt in my mind that even though there are a lot of things about the software that you're creating for your customers that you can measure on paper, features, performance, working set, all these very important things, productivity that it creates among the users, there's this thing we don't measure that we really have a hard time measuring called their emotional reaction to the product, and it weighs heavily on their purchasing decision. Someone once said to me, you know, Hillel, emotion is the enemy of rational thought. When basically they were calling me irrational, which is fine. And I said, okay, be that as it may, but many people use emotion to make purchasing decisions about our software, so we'd be crazy not to take advantage of that. And that's just the way it is. People form attachments to things. We're human beings. That's a good thing. So, and measuring that, frankly, is incredibly difficult. A lot of time you have to measure it, frankly, anecdotally. And hold on, I'll put that up in a second. It's funny for me to talk about creating an emotional reaction in your customer because Microsoft traditionally is actually pretty good at creating an emotional reaction in our user base. As it happens, often, not always, often it's a negative emotional reaction. And just to make sure that we wallow and do a proper mea culpa on that, I have a little selection of wonderful messages clipped from our software. This first one is one of my favorites. Any rotation warnings that you may have suppressed have been reset and may appear again when you rotate a picture. Woo! Thank God you told me that. Because if I had not been warned, and by the way, never mind, why are these even happening? Why is this happening in the first place? That's another issue. But this is a classic, what I like to call a cover your butt dialogue. Hey, there's a really crappy part of our experience and we can't fix it, so we're just going to let you know. And frankly, we're guilty of it. Some of you may, if you try to install Macs, may experience a little trouble during installation. And we just put a big cover your butt message there that nobody reads, and then they go, why did the installer not work the first time I ran it? We go, yeah, we know, we suck. And run it again and it'll work. They're like, oh. So these dialogues don't even work. They don't even really work because no one reads them. This is a good one. This is an internal tool we have at Microsoft for adding yourself to a discussion group, a mailing list. Now, I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that the person was adding themselves to the Linux competitive discussion that it resulted in a catastrophic failure. I'm going to assume not. And again, I don't want to make light of catastrophes, especially given the state of the world these days, but I doubt that there was really a catastrophe that resulted when this person tried to join this mailing list. Here's some oldies but goodies. You're a criminal. If you've done something criminal, you're going to be arrested. I like to pick out some of the words in this dialogue. And this is actually, I'm being a little unfair to Microsoft right now because we fixed this in SP2, but in the original XP, you would see the words harm, suspicious, trust, do not, harm again, malicious. So do you want to open this thing? No, I think not. And then you get dialogues like this, which really, ultimately, people don't even read, and what they really actually see is this. There's an old joke that I say is it's the mantra for how at least we used to write text in our UI at Microsoft. And I'm picking on text, and you may say, what's a big deal, text, who cares? But I look at it as an iconic representation of the attention to detail applied at every level of the stack. You guys know all the time, if you're depending on a piece of infrastructure that has no UI, that is not designed with the customer scenario in mind, and, for example, forces a reboot when someone does something, or for whatever it happens to be, you've got to think about it at every level. UI is not something you slap on. It's not a veneer. Text is not something you slap on after you've made your software to make it all look pretty. Like, pretty is nice, but that is not the point. You have to think about these things at every step in the process. So I used to, this is an old joke, but I think appropriate. And I always thought this was what people were thinking about when they wrote text in our software. So there's a helicopter and an electrical storm flying over Redmond, Washington, and the navigation goes out from the electrical storm, and they're running out of gas, and they're in trouble. And then they see a building, and the pilot flies over to the building and holds up this sign. And again, please do not criticize the reality of this scenario. Yes, I understand this is probably very impossible to actually do in real life. That you probably remember the Microsoft employees at this point always go, you know, you really, if you got a helicopter, you're not going to be able to get that close to the building. And anyway, the point is, so he holds up the sign to the guy in the building, going, where am I? Guy in the building thinks for a second, goes and writes his own sign, holds it up and says, you're in a helicopter. Immediately, the pilot of the helicopter takes a 90-degree turn, flies straight to the SeaTac airport in Seattle, lands safely just before the gas runs out. He gets out of the helicopter. His co-pilot says, how did you know what to do? The guy didn't tell you anything. He's like, oh, that was Microsoft tech support. How did you know that? Well, the answer he gave was completely accurate as well as completely useless. And joke's probably been told about other companies as well, but I think it's appropriate. And so this time, I want to show you some dialog boxes from Max. And I'm going to show these to you to show you how I feel like last time in 2003, the talk hopefully was entertaining and informative, but I wanted to give you guys more meat about how we actually deal with these issues in a real way. And so it's easy to make fun, and I'm good at it, and I enjoy it, frankly, but it's much harder to really solve these problems. So I'm going to show you 5 error dialogues from our product. And you know, I've been coached many times by public relations that, in fact, Hillel, if you want to make a good impression on customers, you should not start off with the error dialogues. You shouldn't show them at all. But that's what we're going to do today. So the first one is when you first, Max ultimately is a sharing application, and we have to authenticate that you are who you say you are. And so there's this process you have to go through where we send you an email. And frankly, it's a pain in the ass. I mean, it's not enjoyable. So we put this up. It says Max likes to make sure you are who you say you are, so nobody else can pretend to be you. We just send it to you, and it has instructions on what you need to do. And it's, again, I almost want to give the performance reviews of my whole team based on how many dialogues we do here. And for every additional dialogue that we have to throw up, I want to take away a point. Like, this is the last resort, but sometimes it's just necessary. And the point of this is, hey, there's this balance between the degree of honesty you have and making the user feel like I have no idea what you're talking about, right? So a lot of the dialogues that I showed before were very honest, but not very useful, didn't direct you on what to do. And so we try to have not a silly tone in the text, but a more informal and personal tone, and not be patronizing, and also accept responsibility for what's ours, not be passive aggressive like I'll show you in a minute. So here's another one. This is the case where Max gets too popular and we can't scale to deal with all the users. And so we flip a switch, the next user signed in gets this dialogue. We never thought this would happen. We've run out of accounts. We're working hard to add more as quickly as possible. Please check again in a few days. We're really sorry. Thanks for your patience. Those first two are relatively easy. This next one is horrible. It's a horrible situation. Basically, this is when the store gets corrupt. All of you know, if you are accessing data on a hard drive, it is possible that the place you store this data can, hopefully won't be, can get corrupted. It's a possibility. Dealing with these edge cases is really a testament to how much time you spend on the quality of your user experience. And so first, we tell them what's happened. We can't access your stuff, it's been damaged. Then we say, this is a tough situation. And, you know, I didn't write the dialogue. The guys on the team wrote it, and then I saw it once because my store got corrupted. And I was like, wow, they're acknowledging that this sucks. Thank you. And it didn't make the situation, the facts of the matter any better. But I heard on NPR once this report that it used to be that big corporations who screwed up, when they got sued, the lawyers would advise them never to apologize because it could be construed as a liability. And then they started saying, you know what, let's apologize anyway. Where we screwed up, screw the liability, let's apologize. And they found actually that the lawsuits went down because people understand mistakes. Our users, they understand that our software isn't always perfect, but they just want some acknowledgement and not to be made to feel dumb. And we also try to not put a huge amount of technical detail in here and leave that to a separate window. So again, here's another weird balance. We have this issue where you have to actually have the correct time in order to share using the product. And this is frankly odd. And rather than bore everyone with the explanation, we acknowledge that it's odd. And then say, look, if you're really dying to know, if you're a geek, which as we are, that's a good thing, and you're really dying to know what the explanation is, go hit the button. And then finally, hey, there's a new version, which typically I think you need to install relatively silently and not bug and beg people all the time with little balloons saying, please, please get the new version. But if you have to, then this seems like an appropriate compromise. Let me just take you through one quick scenario in XP just to give you a sense, one last sense of the kind of things we put our users through. And make sure you realize that we're truly understanding it at Microsoft. So this is a situation where someone goes in, wants to print an image from their web browser, and they have not properly hooked up their printer, which I'm sure would never happen to you, but it does happen sometimes. So they hit print, and they get this dialog, and it says add printer. And you go, okay, I'll add a printer, fine. So they click on that. And then you get this little beauty. Before you can perform printer-related tasks. And I'm like thinking, like what? Like printer volleyball? Like the printer toss? But like what else would I want to do other than print? Which, by the way, when I hit the print button 2 seconds ago, I clearly declared that that was my intention. Of course, the first task we come up with is page setup. That's obviously what you're going to want to do first is set up pages. You need to install a printer. So I'm like, all right, it's sitting right next to the computer, but fine, I'll install a printer. And now we get to the dialogue with someone's master's thesis. And again, I make fun, but there's a reason for this. So this is another cover your butt dialogue, essentially. This is the situation where we are not able to handle legacy printers in as seamless a fashion as we handle more modern printers, and yet we don't want to turn off compatibility. And this is a problem you're going to run into all the time, especially if you're interacting with other pieces of software, other pieces of hardware like we do as an operating system. It's incredibly difficult for us, but you may deal with similar situations. You want to be compatible, and yet the experience is going to degrade. Personally, what I would have done in this case is I would have not shown this dialogue, because you've got to figure by the time we ship Windows XP, we're in the 80 to 90% range of people who actually had the modern printer. And it's not that I want to punish the people with the older printers, but it's worse, I claim, to take the 80% of the audience that doesn't have an old printer through this screen, because it just makes them feel yucky. They're like, what? What is this? I don't understand it. I feel dumb. Why are you telling me this? I don't get it. And there's nothing you can do about it anyway, so why are we telling them? That's another thing. How many dogs have you noticed that there's nothing you can do? They just, well, sorry, nothing you can do here. Just letting you know. We screwed you. So the next thing is, it selects, hey, install this on a network. And I'm like, well, I'm on a network, so that seems appropriate. And then it tells me to find a printer in the directory. And I'm thinking, well, the printer is sitting right next to the computer. Can I just point at it or something? And they're like, no, find the printer in the directory. That's fine. I didn't know there was a directory of printers, but we'll look there. And sure enough, Windows cannot connect to the printer. The mythical directory was never shown, and we get passive-aggressive hostile language from Windows. Hey, either the printer name was typed incorrectly, and I'm not saying who did it, but you're the only one sitting at the keyboard. Or the specified printer, which I know I never gave you a chance to specify, but you screwed it up anyway, has lost its connection. But don't worry, there's help. Shall we? Hey, okay, we're in business. I can't install a local printer. All right, good. That seems like the right thing. I'm going to go hit next. This troubleshooter is unable to solve your problem. I won't say what I think this is the equivalent of that we're saying to our customers, but there's like a finger gesture involved, and it's not nice. It's not appropriate. They paid money for this product. You know, it is amazing to me, but in software, how many times have you had someone come up to you and say, hey, can you help me fix this thing? I screwed it up. I don't know what, I pressed the wrong thing. It's my fault. It's not their fault. It's never their fault. It's always our fault. And yet, they, for some reason, blame themselves. This cannot continue. We are very lucky that to date, and again, I'm sure all your software is much higher quality, but for us, we cannot continue to be in an environment where this product that everyone pays money for, like, makes people feel bad. And this is endemic of software, not, you know, across the board, I think. There's better examples and worse examples. So luckily, though, it says, hey, you know, you don't really want to be here anyway, so why don't you go somewhere else? Shoot. And luckily, that's the only choice. So I hit next, and it says, thank you for using. Very polite. Oh, like kind of like snobbishly polite. Like, thank you very much. Thank you. And the beauty is, my favorite button is the start over button. Kind of, well, the first question is like, why would I do that? This is painful. Why would I do that again? And it's almost saying to you, well, maybe if this time you really try hard, maybe it'll work. Well, I'm not saying, but okay. So, you know, we don't limit these kind of yucky experiences to the software. We extend them to the hardware as well. You get a nice new laptop. You like the way it looks. It's snazzy. I'm not saying that that one particularly was, but it seemed nice at the time. And then we put a big old sticker on it. It's kind of like you just bought this car and we're like, hey, there you go. Don't get me wrong, I love the Windows logo, and for any folks from Microsoft who have the ability to affect my employment status, I love our logo and sticker. But we don't even have the courtesy to stick it on straight. It's kind of at an angle. So just to really torture anyone who likes things to line up. This is the experience that you want people to have. Now, I'm not saying that every one of you want this particular red sports car. You may like an SUV. You may like a bicycle. I don't care. It's all good. The point is, you go and you get something like this, and you smell it, that new car smell, and you touch it, and you picked the color. It's yours. It's a way of expressing yourself. It's a way of expressing yourself. This purchase, right? This is technology, right? This is a piece of technology that you bought to serve a functional purpose in your life. And yet emotion is so invested in the purchasing decision here, you just can't deny it. Smell it, you open and close the door just to hear that sound over and over again, that solid thunk, thunk, just open and closed. It's real nice. And you want to drive around it and show, hey, look, check out my car. Yeah, it's nice. And I'm not saying everybody is like this. I recognize that there is a spectrum. There's some people who just don't care at all. But I guarantee you most people are in the middle, and there's some aspect of themselves that they express when they make these decisions about the software that they buy and use. And you know what? Even if you're in an enterprise environment, you have to know, even a business decision maker, an IT pro, choosing that software is making a statement, an emotional statement, right? They want to look good for having chosen that software. I'm not saying it has to be colorful for that to happen, but I am saying you have to acknowledge that side of things. It's just human nature. Some people even will take that car and then put it right on their desktop and make the theme of the product just try to match all that, so they feel like almost that the PC is turned into that sports car. Some people will, you know, people express themselves all the time. Everyone here is dressed differently. Everyone here, you know, everyone's an individual. That's a good thing. And you got to kind of acknowledge that. People will express themselves in all sorts of different ways. bulldogs, croquet. Some people permanently etch their preferences into their skin. All good. Some people go a little overboard, maybe. I feel sometimes like we are at this point when it comes to software. We are still relying on the fact of the functionality, the core functionality, to be the sole way that the sole aspect that we rely upon for people to make their purchasing decision, or also to just have customer satisfaction with our products. And by the way, this is around, I hope I'm getting the year right, don't quote me on this, but I think it was around late 30s that GM came out with cars that were a lot more custom and different colors and just all sorts of stuff. And that was the last time Ford was the largest car company in the world. It was over. GM just recognized that people wanted to express themselves through their purchasing choice. And I don't think in the 30s that was the end of the functional innovation in automobiles. I think there was plenty. I don't think that as soon as you inject emotion into the equation, that all of a sudden, well, I guess software's turned into a fashion accessory and there's no more innovation to do. We're just going to repackage the stuff over and over again. I don't believe that for a second. There's tons of functional innovation to do. I also think we have to be smart about how we touch on people's heartstrings, as it were. There's 4 trade-offs that you have to make in creating this relationship with your customer. Right? I really do think there is that initial, oh, I got to have it, and then there's that over time, oh, it does something I can't live without. But throughout that process, there's these 4 sets of trade-offs. I'm going to show you how we made these trade-offs in Max. And all of them, in fact, conflict. Let me take the second one, for example. If you want to make something that's powerful, it can often be hard to also make it simple. They are, in some ways, diametrically opposite. But as people who make software for a living, in whatever capacity, it is your job to make these trade-offs. This is not something that you can outsource. This is something that you have to understand your customers and to understand every single step of the way, the right way to make these trade-offs, and it's always different. I wish I could give you the specific formula, the flow chart for exactly how to do this. All I can do is give you the best examples and the best sort of high-level guidelines I can. But time with customers will tell. And the truth is, you really have to do both of these. You don't get to pick one. You don't get to say, oh, it doesn't have to be simple, it's powerful. You don't get to say that. And I don't care who the audience is, even if they're super tech-savvy users. Like, they still want something to be intuitive, not necessarily so simple that it's not efficient, but they definitely want it to be intuitive and simple. So let's do experience or tool first. This is a tool. It makes a cup of coffee. It's relatively simple to use. Relatively. I actually don't know how to use it myself, but I'm told it is relatively simple to use. This is an experience, ostensibly for the exact same purpose. So why is it that so many people could spend a lot less money getting their cup of coffee from here, and more conveniently, because they could brew it at home before they left, they could brew it in their office, but instead go here? Because this is not about the cup of coffee. It is about the overall experience. The coffee is the excuse, but it's not really the reason. It's just sort of the centerpiece of having the experience of going to the coffee shop. Whether it's the couches, the Wi-Fi, people you're trying to make friends with, reading, whatever it happens to be. And you have to acknowledge both of these things. You have to look at how people use your software, and even though you've plotted a particular path in the software, it may be that they actually use it a completely different way than you expected. And you have to go watch them use it. Or you have to build instrumentation into your software that's sensitive to their privacy, and you have to be transparent about that, but that shows you how they use it in an anonymous fashion. Like you need to find these things out. You have to think about where to put things. The dipstick for the oil, to measure the level of your oil, does not belong on the dashboard. It belongs under the hood. The volume control belongs on the dashboard. And again, this is just all about understanding what's the task, how often are people going to use it, how accessible do you need to make it, how far can you bury it in the user interface. Volvo had a concept car where they locked the hood. You could not get into the hood. You said, oh, just take it to the authorized mechanic. They'll do it. Don't even worry yourself with it. And there's something to be said for that. So as I mentioned before, we made this application called Max. And it's all about making lists of photos, making visualizations of those images, and then sharing them peer-to-peer over the internet. And I'll do a proper demo in a second. You've already seen it, but I'll do it quick. But I just want to show you some screenshots for different trade-offs here. So this is a tool. This is the screen where you create a list. And what we basically, and it's a little bit complicated. You have to go and navigate around the hierarchy of the file system, pick various images, and as you click on them, they get added to the blank space on the right. This, however, is an experience. This is how you enjoy the images. We've gotten rid of almost all the UI, and in fact, what we should have done, we just didn't have time, is make it full screen. So you don't even see the min-max close, the tabs, you should see none of that stuff. This is the experience. Both are present in the software. You need to do both of these. The simple versus powerful debate is, again, it's a really difficult tension to traverse. And in fact, sometimes you have to realize that it's okay for software to take a little time to introduce itself. Some software, like that joke I showed with all the toolbars, can be like that person at the party who is telling you way too much information and you just met them. Like, hey, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this other thing. It's like, whoa, whoa, I just installed you. Can we slow down here? And it's okay to reveal the functionality over time. You have to imagine that the first experience is going to be very different than someone who's used your software for a while and uses it on an ongoing basis. And by the way, on our team at Microsoft, it's always that picture on the right. A lot of hugging going on. Everyone's very, very friendly. I don't know where we got that picture. They're all dressed the same, too. Things get better over time, and your software can be something to that effect. The simple versus powerful thing we find in a variety of ways, and I think this picture illustrates the trade-offs in the physical world. On the left, more powerful. On the right, simpler. And in fact, the task that the knife on the right does, the knife on the right is way better than any of the blades on the left for that task. The beauty is, and again, I'm assuming most of you are involved in making software somehow, the beauty is in the digital world, unlike the physical world, we actually can morph the software to do both. It can be this incredible multifunction device, and it can be an incredible single-purpose tool, but it requires work. Sometimes it requires you to actually make two experiences within your software, and which is costly, frankly. But you have to think about how much productivity you get from your users when you go do that. So here's another example. This is the example where we have this view of the images. We've tried to make it easy for you by automatically laying out your images in these slides. And so we do fancy little layouts and little templates, and all the images show up, and hopefully they look nice. But frankly, we're not that smart. We don't know that we necessarily got them right. Ostensibly, if we do them in the order that you took them, we may tell the story properly, but we may have not been smart enough and put a vertical image in a horizontal slot, and there's technical ways that we'll get better at that. But the main point is you're going to do something the user doesn't want. The default here, though, is that we say, look, if you don't want to do anything, we do our best to make it simple by default. The right thing happens by default. There is no way on this screen to edit these. It's just, you're done. But if you click the edit button, boom, all of a sudden, now drag and drop is enabled. You can go drag slides around, you can go drag images in between things, you can delete, you can move, right click, it's all there for you. And you may think this is a small distinction, but having modality in our UI where in the default path, right, it just does the right thing for you. And yet for the 10%, 20%, let's say 40% case, where, hey, you want to go tweak it yourself, you're one modality away, one button away from going and actually making those edits on your own, it actually seemed like the right compromise. And the beauty is, the default path, it just works. And yeah, it was a little bit of extra work for us. Not too much, because we assumed it from the beginning. So in fact, the code that generates the first view is the same code, I believe, Dan will correct me if I'm wrong, as the code that generates the second view, but in the first view we just hidden some of the functionality. And in the end, I don't think it was hugely expensive for us to do that, and I think it was the right thing to do for customers. And you just got to think about what are the bulk of your customers going to do. One of the things that you can do to make your software have a great user experience has really nothing to do with the pixels on the screen, nothing to do with the tone of the text, Nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's really all about making the thing rock solid and making it forgiving. That scene that I played out before where someone calls you and says, oh, can you help me? I screwed it up. That's crazy. Like, think about it. You work to make a great piece of software and to load it up with fantastic functionality that's going to make your customers' lives easier, at home, at work, wherever. And yet they are afraid to explore it for fear of breaking it. So by definition, the dynamic is set up in advance that all the hard work you did to add all this value to the software, they do not want to find, because they're worried that in the process they're going to break the thing. Making the software forgiving is a very big deal, and I think it's something that you need to make the thing unbreakable, essentially. I think that sometimes to make things easier to use, we think of doing things for users, and this is another one of those difficult trade-offs. Sometimes we say, you know what? Put the user in control. That's a good phrase. Put them in control. Let them do it themselves. They want to be in control. I bet 99% of this audience just says, look, don't do it for me. Please, you're not smart enough. I will do it for myself. Yet, there are some things where you say, you know what? Do it for me. Why do I have to do this? I don't want to go get the driver for the printer. Please, go get it yourself, install it yourself. I trust you. Take care of it. And there are weird balances that you have to strike in going and doing this, right? And when you let the user do it themselves, well, they're in charge. They can get into more trouble. But when you do it for them, they have less control. And this is a difficult trade-off. And sometimes we want the user to do stuff, and not only do we try to do stuff for them, we try to get them to do certain things. And either we're robots in that we are too strict in our interpretation of what they want to do, and we're like, look, I don't care what you wanted, we're doing this. Tough. I don't know anything better. Or we're always telling them about new features in kind of an obnoxious way. Hey, you know you can print these 4 up? Don't you want to print 4 up? Or my favorite example is Passport. You know, when you boot XP, it's like, hey, want a passport? No, really. Want a passport? Because we got a lot of them. And we got to get rid of them. So, and it's a little bit torturous, and we're learning. We are learning, and hopefully you can benefit from our mistakes. Here's an example where, so here's an example where we had to wrestle with, again, doing it for them or letting them do it themselves. On the first screen where you go to actually make a list, we just show you the 7 most recent folders in your My Pictures folder, right? That's the default assumption. Because the thought is, the scenario is you plugged in your camera, you downloaded the photos, you launch Max, you want to share those photos that you just downloaded from your camera. That is the theory. We know that is not 100% of the time. We think it is a lot of the time. Even if it's 60% of the time. I don't know, but it's a lot. Certainly after you've been using it for a while. Yet, sometimes doing it automatically for them is not what they want. They really want to manually construct a list of photos that are maybe some in these folders, some in others, whatever it happens to be. So just in case you didn't find it, we decided to make the button that gave you access to building your own list of photos, you'll see it in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, relatively large. This is so a helicopter could land on it. But the truth is, we had the button kind of a regular toolbar size, and we noticed when people were using it, they could not find it. And you may think this is actually smaller than the one that was proposed. So we scaled it back just a little bit. But we're learning, right? And we said, well, what the hell? It looks a little funny, but we want people to know where it is, so we'll pop it in there. So here's the automatic one, and here's the manual version, where they go and they go pick individual images, and it's a little harder to do. It is a little harder to do. But again, some people are not going to want the automatic one. They'll go press the big blue button, and they'll get to this screen. And that's how we made this trade-off. And you'll notice, you know, I don't know if you think it's cheating, but you'll notice in a lot of the cases where I say we have to make a trade-off, we do both. And we try to do it in a way from an engineering perspective that it's not a huge waste of our time. And I understand that everyone has real costs to deal with. Again, we have resource constraints as well, and we had to be smart about how we did things, and we tried to engineer our code knowing in advance that we would need different modes for people, and the default mode and then the more kind of advanced. And hopefully it works. We'll see. Lastly, the last trade-off is around familiarity versus specialness. if that's a word. I think it is. So here are a variety of things that are all the same and yet different, and no one is confused. Consistency is often the oversimplification that people use for saying how you make good user interface. Now, I am not knocking consistency. Consistency is a good thing. Yet I think that was the innovation of the mid-'80s to early '90s. Consistency, where every app had a different menu bar and icons and windows and all that good stuff. That was the innovation then. We've gone a little bit beyond that, I would claim. Take a look at the web. I think there's lots of great UI in the web that in many ways can be completely inconsistent, and it's okay. Users do great. They really do. I'm not knocking consistency, just saying it has a time and a place. Here's inconsistency that I would claim is bad. I'll do it again just so you notice. Look at the one on the right. A lot of times I'll go to a team that's doing something like this and I'll say, you know, why don't you just make it the same as everything else, as all the other things like that? And they'll go, no, no, no. This is our UI innovation. I'll go, no, no, it's not. And it's difficult to know where to draw that line, but I've made the point in extreme fashion. You can do consistency too much. Hey, these three things kind of look similar. They all kind of got water coming out and drains and handles and faucets, and why not? Let's combine them. Yeah, probably not a good idea. But actually, I want to be clear about something. This is how we write code, right? We look at three functions that are basically doing the same thing. We say, why don't we abstract these instead of writing the code 3 times? Let's write it once. Let's parameterize it and go make it so that we don't have to write this thing 3 times, because basically these three functions all do the same thing. That is a wonderful thought when you're engineering software under the hood. That is only sometimes the right thought when it comes to making UI. Here's another example. Right now, when you click on one of the folders here, in fact, we try to make it look much like a folder in Vista and XP, where we show the thumbnails. But of course, we also do a little bit of an animation there to give people a sense, and it just adds a little bit of special. And we don't think it hurts the consistency or stops anyone from understanding what's going on, but adds this little element of special and unique and value, I think. It's not just eye candy, but I think actually draws your eye to what you just clicked on and gives you a smooth transition to what you're doing next. It's my super sexy PowerPoint animations. Thank you. So these are those 4 trade-offs. And again, I can't stress enough that these are hard things to do, but I think that if you see software that you think does it well and you try to emulate it and you have an open channel of communication with your customers, with your users, and you literally watch them use it in their natural environment and you stay open-minded about hearing their feedback, I will tell you there is nothing more humbling than watching a customer fail at using a piece of software that I had a part in making. It is depressing, frankly, because I'm working on it, I think it's right, and they're just like, what? I don't get this. And I just feel terrible. But you got to pick yourself up and listen to what they're saying and find the path to what it is that they need. So with that, I'll do just a quick demo. This is Max. Let's launch it here. And again, I don't want to bore you guys with this too much because we did show it in the keynote. But again, a couple of interesting things about this. You'll notice we did a navigation-based UI, so there's back and a forward button. We have basically tab browsing of UI built in. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I picked the wrong one. No. Let's see. Sorry about that. My fault. So I can't imagine why you didn't see what I was doing. Here we go. Let's go back to that. So again, sure, we tried to have a very polished aesthetic to the product, but again, that is not. We like that, and we try to make that the iconic representation of the value end to end in the software that we made. So a couple of interesting things. The first thing is, and I mentioned this in the keynote, but I want to stress this: putting the blog right on our homepage, like front and center, is not just a way for us to communicate with customers, but a way for them to communicate back with us. And it seemed like a neat idea, but I hope it will become kind of a. I hope it will become representative of how people think about their ability to interact with people making the software. And us being front and center about that and being really open-minded and really listening to feedback, even though we might not always be able to act on it, putting that front and center right on our homepage, I hope is something that feels valuable to people and kind of says a lot about how we're trying to make this software. The next thing is, so let's create and share a list. Again, here's just the 7 default folders made for me. Click on this. There we go. And now I get this toolbar guy. I could just go and play these if I wanted and see them as they are. I could share them right now. Or I could go add. And again, we tried to keep things real straightforward, real simple. And in some ways, you could say, hey, well, that's pretty easy for you to do. You don't do very much. But on the other hand, you can see solutions today that do this kind of thing, that let you make albums and make lists that are actually feel relatively complicated. You know, I remember I worked on a project called MSN Explorer, and it was a browser for MSN a few years ago, and the buttons were really big. And I had a couple of well-meaning, very smart vice presidents come to me and say, Hillel, why are the buttons so big? And I was like, well, it makes it feel easier. And they were like, aha. And I don't know what mental note they were making about my future career path. It didn't seem that good at the time, though. But yet, it was just one of those small things that make the product just feel a little less cluttery, a little more understandable, a little easier to navigate. So let's here grab some more pictures. And again, other small things, like the fact that we update the guy on the right every time we add. Actually, this screen is a real interesting example. So here's an example where we wanted to make it very easy to do a specific task. A lot of times, remember the example I gave before, you find similar functions in the code and you abstract them into one function. In the UI, we did the exact opposite here. Why does this view behave differently than all the others? And it does. When you go, we figured, what are you going to do in this piece of UI? You're making a list. You are selecting from a big pool of photos and adding them or removing them from a small list or from a separate list. So you can only do 2 things here, essentially, 2 main things. You can add and you can remove. And in fact, we know which you want to do depending on the photo you click in. Because we know that you're not going to add a photo that's already been added, and you can't remove one that isn't in the list. So we do this simple thing where as you hover, it gives you a hint. I'm hovering over this image that's not selected, and it gives me the plus. That's an add. Now on it, it's a remove. Very simple. I'm probably making the software crazy by doing this over and over again, but you get the idea. And it's, you know, it may seem like a simple thing to do, but it's all about, I'll give you a little trick. On every screen of your application, ask yourself, what is the #1 thing the user wants to do here? And by the way, if you've come up with a list of 10 things, you probably have too much stuff on the screen. Probably. Not necessarily, but probably. And you have to be careful. If you break stuff up too much, you can make it inefficient and users are not going to, it's going to be cumbersome for people. But ask yourself that question. What is the #1 focus of this? And so here we broke consistency to go make the single-click add behavior that doesn't exist anywhere else in the application because we knew what users are going to do on this page. Let's add one more folder full of images. And by the way, that scaling works everywhere in all our views. Okay, so let's go get flowers and plants. Add all. Okay, and create the list. So the next thing is the data view separation. Again, I showed this a little bit before, but the key here is, again, it's that example that I talked to you about before. By default, when I pick an album, the software decides where to place the images. Okay? And then if I want, I can go and edit. This guy is put in a stupid spot. Let's switch him around. Pop that. And again, we started, this wasn't originally the design, but notice what happens when I drag this image over here. The hint is swap. That's what the icon means. Hopefully that's clear. And in fact, if I drag it down here, it turns to an add. And that was sort of a little trick we came up with after we did the previous UI that we said, hey, we could do this everywhere, and felt kind of nice. Oop. All right, so let's hit play, get the preview. Again, try to make it a super simple experience. Rather than clutter up the screen with the transport controls, we only show them when you're moving the mouse around. Stop moving the mouse around, take it off the transport controls, they disappear. Again, we get that little hint on hover as to what's going to happen. Zoom in. I guess that was kind of silly. And, of course, there's also the mantle view that we did. Again, same idea. Let me move that over here. There we go. Take this picture, move it there. And share. Again, I mentioned the nice thing also, we didn't have to give a rich preview of the album that you're about to share on this sharing screen. We didn't have to do that, but we did. The platform made it super easy for us. It also is just a reminder, hey, that's the thing I just built. And of course, if I don't like it, I can hit the back button and go change it. So mdemo2@hotmail.com. This is an unmonitored email address, by the way. Hey, check this out. And let's share. Now, frankly, this leads to a portion of the discussion that's a little invisible, but I think is important. I think the single best bit of user experience that we did in this product, you can't see. Today, sharing a photo, and again, this is just a sample app that we built, but we built it so you could use it, and we wanted to embody the values of the user experience in the application. If you want to share a file over the internet, and I'm assuming you are the copyright holder of that file, if you want to do that, it is unbelievably difficult, and it shouldn't be. You have two PCs, there's a wire, there's an internet, you're both connected to it. Why can you not simply share a file? You can email it. That can be difficult, especially with large files or lots of files. Get into attachment limits, etc. You can put it up on a server somewhere, up on a website. But again, that can be cumbersome. We just wanted you to be able to type in an email address, hit share, and then, over in the other machine, there it is. Hey, check this out. I'm going to hit accept and watch it load. The key here is we use a variety of services to facilitate the transfer of the data from one machine to another. So the first thing we do is we definitely use Indigo to try and establish the peer-to-peer connection. But sometimes there are NATs and firewalls in the way. We have a rendezvous service that makes the P2P happen, and we have a relay service, so in case the machines can't see each other, worst case, we'll actually transfer the bits for you up through our server, and they're all encrypted, so we have no idea what it is that you're transferring, and we don't keep any of it. We don't know anything about it. The key here is this. Yeah, question? I did right-click to bring up the menu. I could have single-clicked also. The question was, did I right-click? Sure, the question was, can I talk about right-clicking and how user-friendly that is? I will in a moment. I'll finish this and then I'll get to that. To me, guaranteed delivery, the fact that the thing reliably works no matter what, that is the single best piece of our user experience. The single best. Because you make a promise to the user about what the thing does, and it does it no matter what. And there's no UI there. You may think that I am just fascinated by pixels, and you would be right. That said, clearly that is the single best aspect of our user experience. This is the thing that makes it a high-quality user experience, in my opinion. Now, the question was on right-click. So I could have single-clicked. That would have done play. I could have right-clicked also. Sorry, now I'm kind of in a weird spot. I could have, and I right-click also. Here's my attitude with right-click. And Microsoft has been schizophrenic, but I've been an advocate of this position for the last couple of years. I think right-click is a wonderful thing. We took the time to dedicate very high-value, high-visibility real estate to giving a button that brings up the right-click menu. It's right on everybody's mouse. We should not be ashamed of right-click. We should embrace it. It's not bad. And I should say, to be globally sensitive, alternate click, because sometimes it's left click, and also if you're right-handed or left, I don't know what the deal is, but it switches around. I got 10? Okay, I'm almost done. The point is, we dedicated this space. Let's not be ashamed of using it. The crime in right-click is to be schizophrenic. And I'm not, by the way, I think we're committing the crime a little bit in Mac, so we're not great examples there yet. The crime is to not implement it everywhere. If you're going to have right-click in one place, do it consistently everywhere. Teach your users how to use it and let them rely on it. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. Contextual UI on the object is great. Sometimes people think the other way, sometimes they think this way. It's a fantastic tool. We should be aggressive about making right-click work everywhere on every object. That's my take. Hope that answers your question. I'm almost done. Actually, I think I'm pretty much done. Again, nice little things here. This is an example, I claim, of where we're trying to do something functional, but do it in a sexy way. So here's this mantle view, again, trying to mimic your fireplace. But sometimes you want to see the images up close, and we try to do a snazzy animation to make that happen. And again, you've got to be careful with the animations. You don't want them to be gratuitous, but hopefully we struck a balance where we're really trying to make an overall emotional, positive emotional experience that doesn't feel distracting or annoying, but actually adds overall to the value of what you're doing. All right, so let me just wrap up. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to take questions in a second, but I'll just give you a couple of final things. First, for those of you interested in the technical details of how we built this thing, Dan and Walter over here, two of our architects, are going to be giving a talk on Thursday in Hall C&D at 1 p.m. I highly encourage you to go. They're much smarter than I am, and we'll give you lots of very cool details about how we did it and show you wacky stuff we can do with our code and give you code snippets that you can check out and use yourself. The second thing is, there's my email address if you have any questions. Please don't sign me up for any mailing lists. And last of all, 2 years ago, I started a blog at the PDC, and it failed. I failed. But I'm going to try again. So here it is with my weird domain name, prrl.com. So and you can communicate with me at that website as well. And hopefully, I hope that you guys felt like, since the last time we gave this talk, that we actually spent time giving you a living, breathing example of an application that embodies these values. And I forgot to mention the most important thing, you can use it. Go get it. It's at www.microsoft.com/max, M-A-X. I apologize in advance if you have trouble installing it. I'll have that next PDC as an example of a crappy install experience. And we take full blame there, and it will get better over time. If you have questions, please go to the microphones. They're there and there, and we need you to go there so that they get recorded. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have. Thank you very much. Apologize if I can't see any questions. Yep, right over there.
Well, did you spend more time designing the user experience? Or which did you spend more time doing, designing the user experience or actually coding it?
Well, me personally, I do nothing. I just take credit for my team's work. They're sitting over here, by the way, so if you have any positive things. Negative things, tell me. There, yeah, clap for them. They did all the hard work. Sorry, I don't mean to be a smartass. The team, we've been working on it for a few months, and part of the reason that it's taken us so long, we actually had a huge amount of the UI up and running in the first 2-3 months, the 3D view aside. But the iteration that happened in the UI went on for quite a bit. So to me, the design and the execution phase are not as cleanly separated as you might imagine or hope. And so I think that a lot of times what would happen is we would design it on paper or using prototyping tools, get it in the build very quickly, and Avalon was, again, enormously helpful for us in terms of being able to turn bitmaps and sketches into working code in very quick turnaround. And then there's just no substitute for actually using it. And you use it and you go, this sucks. And so we keep iterating and iterating. So there was, I apologize for kind of not answering the question, but I would say a lot of time was spent on both. Question over there.
Question for you on like power users and how you use like keyboard. Doesn't seem to be very discoverable for a user to find out how to use the keyboard as opposed to
So the question was, and let me see if I got this right, and I apologize, the microphone went out for a sec. The question was, how do you feel about power users? It looks like you have not made the keyboard
experience the same that it would need to be for the mouse. It looks like you focused heavily on the mouse. How would you get someone through it in a streamlined way?
It's a good question. Frankly, I give us a D plus C minus on our keyboard work this round, and we need to do more. And frankly, in my opinion, it's doing great keyboard support. Never mind that it makes it accessible, so you get people with different abilities to be able to use your software who aren't always fast with the mouse. But for power users, it's free, basically. You do a good job on the keyboard, power users can move like lightning through your application. I think it's a great thing to do, and we just ran out of time, but we're going to add it. And we do have some basic keyboard support, but we need to do a lot better there. Our keyboard support is not good at all, and shame on us. But it's great because it doesn't distract from a mouse-based experience doing great keyboard support. It doesn't distract at all. I think it's a great thing. Yeah, over there.
Yes, I think it's interesting the choices that you made. I'm also interested in the choices that you chose against. For example, a common paradigm in creating a list like that would be to drag from the one side and drop onto the other side, and then if you want to remove it, you could, or is that part of it? Do you actually have that as well?
We got it.
And the other thing I'm curious about in that particular view, where you're creating a list.
Book. You can even
No,
drag.
I'm talking about where you're creating the list.
This is the spot where you
Oh, okay.
This is
okay.
it. Yeah, you
now,
can do it.
You know what
drag
I
it
would
out.
feel if I was doing this, I would be dragging things over to the right, and then I'd see a button that says create the list, and I would say, but I just did.
You know, I kind of agree with you on that text. It bothers me, and we're working on it. Okay. You're right. I think it's weird text. I did create the list. Like, what am I doing here? I agree with you. And in fact, by the way, we have an implicit save model, so the list is actually already created. If you close the application at that point, you come back, the list would still be there. So it's kind of a wacky button. Good point. Yeah. Oh, sorry, in the middle. Sorry. Oh, no mic there. Okay, over here.
Hi. I had two questions. One, is any part of the software, including the UI, written using test-driven development? And secondly, what is the future of this software?
Did someone pay you?
Yeah.
Are you a shill? We use a process, well, our own brand, not to take credit, but our own variation of a process called test-driven development, among other things. And not to get into too much detail on this, but basically the developers write the unit test first, ostensibly, and then write the code to pass the unit test. The goal is for us to have shippable bits every 3 months, and for our build to always work. Danny, shaking your head? Oh, okay, fine. So yes, we are using test-driven development, and that's something we can talk about offline, not torture everybody with, but it's basically, we have 3 disciplines. We have program management, developers, and testers, not to mention all the design and design UA usability support we get. But of the 3 sort of core engineering disciplines, we've made it so that it is not just the test team's responsibility to make the product high quality. I have been on software teams where, oh, that's test job. Throw it over at them, they'll find all the bugs. We try to make it so that everybody has real pride of ownership on our team, and every line of code that gets checked in, people feel responsible for. And test job is to validate that we did our job, not to necessarily ensure it. It's everyone's job to ensure quality. So, sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The second part was, what's the future of this product? Are you going to maintain it?
Well, the future of the product is not being discussed at this time. By me. Right now, we're definitely going to keep supporting it. You can definitely go use it. It's beta software, so take all the appropriate precautions, but who knows what will come down the road. Anything's possible.
Is the source available?
The source is not available, and I apologize for that. We're going to look into how we make some of that stuff available, but no promises there anytime soon. In the meantime, the Thursday talk, you will see some of the most interesting code. And if you really had a question for how to do something in particular, we'd be happy to show you how we did it. And anyone with a reflector can pretty much see our source code anyway. So enjoy. By the way, I want to mention one thing. For a general UI talk, Cheer, when is your talk? Thursday at noon, there will be the general official Windows Vista user interface guidelines, instructions with the director of Windows User Interface Design, Tjeerd Hoek. So you should definitely attend that one as well. I want to make sure to mention that. Other questions?
I believe the answer is going to be the same as you gave him on his second question.
Sure.
But I was wondering if this is going to go ahead and replace or be added to my pictures.
No. Good question. So this is not a feature of Vista. This is not, think of it as a labs or sandbox type product. And it's something that we're going to keep working on. We've got a nice sized team that's dedicated to it, busy in Redmond working away. It is definitely not going to replace any feature of Vista or anything like that. It's just kind of off to the side on its own. That's it. So yeah. Question?
At the PDC, I guess, 2003, you guys had all these recipes or cookbooks of what prototypical Longhorn applications would look like. Is this what Longhorn Vista applications will look like? I guess we should go to his talk. But for instance, the scroll bar. I've never seen a scroll bar like that before. Is that a one-off control and look and feel for your app, or is it the way the direction is going in Vista?
So we were in a weird spot where we are, because of the timing, we don't yet adopt the official Vista look and feel. So you should not look at our look and feel as anything official. It's a weird one-off, just like us. And we, over time, will do what Tjeerd tells us to do.
Because it does look awfully different from Office 12.
Yeah, well, we're going to...
This is better. For photos.
Well, we will get there to an appropriately consistent, a familiar yet special look and feel, and we will get there over time. Right now, we're not there. You notice we run right now, currently on XP and Vista, so we certainly weren't going to bring the Vista look and feel down level. So that's where we're at today, but it's a good question. And Tjeerd will have more answers in terms of appropriate look and feel for different apps and different app styles and all that at his talk. Okay, one last question, then I know we got to wrap up because we got to let the next people set up. Yeah.
I know this is just tangentially related to the topic of the talk, but you mentioned since you mentioned and seem as passionate as maybe I am about test-based development. I was kind of surprised when I went over the list of topics, and that I haven't seen this mentioned anywhere in this conference. And I was wondering, are you like the canary in the mine on that one as well? And can we expect that for WinFX for Windows Forms at some point they will kind of embed that, because there's always that problem that you have to create, you have to kind of tweak something to test the user interface.
It's a good question. I don't know the long-term answer that you just asked. I'll tell you that I think that at the PDCs we try to focus as much on usable content as possible as opposed to process type stuff. Not that the test-driven development process is a bad thing to talk about, but we try to focus on the things that maybe we are uniquely able to give information about, and there's so little time, we try to jam so much in there, and I think don't look at it as a lack of support of that philosophy, but just a matter of time and resources why we don't talk about it. All right.
So it is common at Microsoft, or is it policy? Everyone uses it. Nobody uses it. Some people who want to. Microsoft
is a real neat place in that we don't have a lot of broad policies that everyone has to follow on these things. We have standards certainly, and we have best practices, but people get to do definitely. I don't know. So our best practices guide does talk about test-driven development. I do not know how many teams do it. I know we are not the only ones, but I know there's many that don't. But they probably also have alternative mechanisms that they think are good. And everyone kind of takes their own approach. And there are apparently new Visual Studio features for unit tests that make it even easier to do. All right, I don't want to get an actual hook pulling me off. Team members are here up front. Feel free to come on up and ask them questions. I really appreciate you coming. I promise next PDC we will not do another repeat talk. All right, thanks a lot, guys.